Is it possible to use humour to show that the people who rule us are incapable of thought? Their answer to climate change is nuclear winter, and their defence policy is borrowed from the Taliban, suicide bombing. Are they imbeciles?
I should take a few. Okay, I'm going to take a few questions and contributions and then invite the speakers to come back on them. Friend at the back there.
I may be being naive, but part of me thinks that the reason why we have a huge weapons industry is because business is behind that industry and politicians are in the pockets of business. In my view, and I'm not being political, it's just something that strikes me, is that politics and business are both going to push us in this direction. It was only a little while ago that we had massive subsidies for solar power on our roofs. That was cut, and now we have a nuclear power station being built. It's not about politics, it's about business, and I'm not that sort.
Thanks very much. Okay, friend here, if people can speak up so that we can hear at the front, please. Yep.
As I told Bruce this morning, when he led the marches in London, I pushed my children in the wheelchair behind them.
Pushchair.
Pushchair behind them. I heard something a few weeks ago that really stunned me about our young people. And when we say we must change things, we must inform people, as Bruce said. A seminar at Bristol University for third-year students on global security, of the 10 members attending that seminar, only 2 had heard of Trident. And there's someone in this meeting who can vouch for that. The people with whom I walked behind Bruce were nearly all young people. Young people knew. Many, many, many young people are completely ignorant. And we have to change them before we can change the world.
Thank you. Anyone else in this round?
I have lost all faith in politicians. What guarantee will you give us that you will vote against Trident, whatever the policy of the Labour Party? I have lost faith with trade unionists. I hear that the leader of the GMB is earning £140,000 a year. What do his members earn? Why doesn't he earn a salary that is the average of his members? And similarly, politicians' salaries and expenses should be the average of the working man in this country. Because that is what is happening. You are corrupted by big industry, lobbyists, and people like that, and you forget the people who put you there in power until you come round to another general election. And that is why we are having cuts. Osborne, whatever the other one is, they don't know how the poor in this country live. And they are just out of touch.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll invite our speakers if they want to respond. Bruce, do you want to go first there?
Well, I'd just like to say a word about the question about business at the back. Just this, that I think it's much more complex. There's no doubt whatever that big business has a part to play. You're going in arms trade, and there's people who are making money out of it. It's a major factor. So yes, of course, business is part of it. But it's a great delusion for us if we imagine that we can blame them, the capitalists or something, and that the rest of us are not responsible or involved. Keir Hardie, if you remember, was violently, is that the right word, for peace, the First World War. His house was stoned in the valleys of Wales after war broke out by the miners, many unemployed, because he was not being loyal to his country. I think a force as big as any other is basic nationalism. We've seen it in many ways. I've given you 2 examples. It's what the German army, they knew they were defeated at Stalingrad and so on. They kept on. Why not for Hitler? Because of the honour of the country. And I think we're making a mistake if we can just box off one cause of all this and say it's the powerful or the business or whatever. We have a very crude basic understanding of the world we live in, and basically in one sense, in the polite sense, we're all racist. We live in our own national boxes and we think there's something sacred about them, and there isn't.
Thanks.
I'd just add, I think the points on kind of people being sheep or people being ignorant and not knowing what's going on, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think you have to be careful about how that's posed. I think if you went up to people and said, well, you're ignorant, I don't think that's a way of opening a dialogue and beginning to challenge that. I realise, it's obviously different what you'd say in a meeting like this to people you were talking to. But I do think we need to be aware of the reasons for things like that. The propaganda that comes from the media that has been mentioned. The fact that, people's lives don't leave them a lot of time in a lot of cases for stuff. That they need to, we need to go out and find them and give people the reasons to be motivated, not complain that they're not.
I think I wanted to say something about all of those questions, but I've been told not to talk too long. So I wanted to address particularly your questions about politicians and what guarantee, I think you were asking me particularly, what guarantee I can give you that I will vote against Trident no matter what. And I can't give you that guarantee because I'm a member of a political party. I'm not an independent candidate, I'm a Labour Party candidate. I take the Labour Party's money for printing leaflets, and I'm not then going to make you personally a one guarantee on one policy. However, I think it's important that politicians don't promise things that they can't stick to. So if I was to promise you that now, and I know now that I don't know what's going to happen in the future, that would be wrong. But what I can promise you is that I will use everything in my power, every bit of my powers of persuasion, every bit of evidence that I know and believe to be true to convince my party that we shouldn't be putting it to the test. And I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but I think it's better that I tell you the truth than I make you a promise when I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. I don't know if I'm going to be elected for a start, but I do know that I've come here tonight partly because it's very important to me to show people that as politicians we do have individual beliefs. I don't earn anything as a parliamentary candidate. It's a voluntary position, being a candidate, and the reason I'm doing it is because I believe very, very strongly that there shouldn't be any poor people anywhere, ever, at any time. And that starts from right here, because there are some poor people right there, right in that block of flats, right there. And I know this because I go and knock on those people's doors and I talk to those people, and because I live here. I live just over the other side of the motorway, because my family is also one of the families that's being hurt by this. My neighbours are being hurt by this. So that's why I'm a Labour Party politician. But I would be really irresponsible if I made one policy promise without knowing what position I'm going to be in. So all I can tell you is that I am personally against Trident. I personally believe that it's the right thing to do to cancel it, and I personally know, I will use the word know, that cancelling Trident will help to end poverty, and that's why I'm standing for parliamentary election in my middle age when there's plenty of other things I could be doing. I didn't go into my adult life thinking I want to be an MP. That was not on my list of things to do. I'm doing it because I want to stand up against the Tory government and its cuts. That's the promise I can make you, and I know it's not what you wanted to hear necessarily, but I hope that you can respect the fact that I'm speaking what I believe in and what I think is important. I think it is possible to use humour, but I can't think of any jokes right now. I particularly can't think of any jokes to help respond to the fact that I know people are worried about young people not knowing enough. Again, all I can tell you is that I talked to a lot of the young people that I know in the last 2 weeks when I was asked to do this, and I was pleasantly surprised by how many of them did know that nuclear weapons were costing them a lot of money and were worried about it. But I would share with you my anxiety that an apparently well-educated elite doesn't seem to know it. I think that's really frightening. I didn't speak to any third-year University of Bristol students, but I do know quite a few, and I'm going to go and talk to them and find out. And I do feel inspired to make sure that when I leave this meeting that one of the things I'm doing is telling as many people as possible, but particularly young people, because it is young people that the reason that I'm in politics is for young people's future. That's why I'm doing it. So sorry there weren't jokes.
When Blair came into office, he said, you know, when he became a young MP, he was idealistic. He said, you know, he went to see Arthur Scargill. He said, tell me the way to be, Arthur. I want to be a real socialist. He ended up taking £2 million a year from the banks that privatised the Iraqi banking system. There is a deep corruption within the heart of public life in this country. Bruce is right about the nationalism. I agree with him. We're a declining world power, a third-rate power that wants to punch above its weight, have nuclear weapons, go to war when we can. But there is a huge, terrible cancer at the heart of public life. You saw it with the expenses scandal. You saw it with the film of Jeff Hoon, the great minister for whatever he was Minister for Defence, offering private companies his time to lobby for them inside Parliament. £5,000 an hour can buy you an MP in this country. You talk about, you know, banana republics. This is a banana republic. I'm fortunate that I live in Islington North, so I don't care what Labour Party policy is about Trident, because I know that my MP, Jeremy Corbyn, whatever the Labour Party say, will vote against Trident when it comes up in the House of Commons. Thank you.